Hello everyone, this is Rabia from UCC Flip Learning. Welcome to today's class. Today we're going to learn about transfer pricing, what it is, okay, what are the rules for transfer pricing, and what is the transfer pricing where the group's profits are maximized, okay. So let's start. I already told you about the divisionalized and decentralized structure where different divisions have autonomy to take their own decisions and they are profit accountable. Okay, their performance are depicted by the profits they have made in certain period, and so as their bonuses are connected to the control of the profit they have. And when in that scenario, each of the manager would just want to improve their profit, would want to increase their profit. Okay, and this situation gets critical where in a large company with the different subsidiary companies, okay, they start trading with each other, okay, they're buying and selling things from each other. So what should be the price that one selling division should charge to the other division for in exchange of the goods and services? So that very price is known as the transfer price. Okay, transfer price is a price that is charged to the buying division from the supplying division, which is actually revenue per unit for the selling division because he's providing goods to the buying department, and the same price is actually the cost to the buying division. For example, company has two divisions. One makes batteries and the other one makes cars. Okay, so imagine division X make batteries or car components. Okay, and it sells to division Y, and division Y further sells it to the outside market. So what should be the price charged for the battery or the car components from the selling division to the buying division? That is going to be your transfer price. Okay, so what each manager would want for division X, he would just want the transfer price to be the maximum so that he can get the maximum benefit out of it. He can maximize the profit of its department. And what about the division Y? Division Y is also a profit center. He's also profit accountable. He also wants to increase its benefit and reduce its cost. So here is that transfer price, its cost to the division Y, who sells cars, who further assembles it, probably assembles the components, the batteries and everything, and then sells it to the external market by adding more value to it and bearing some of its own cost, and then sells it to the external market. He wants that transfer price to be minimum in order to maximize its profit, as both are profit accountable. So imagine a situation, there's one division A, it sells to division B, okay, and it has got its own cost of 20, and division B also, after buying components from division A, also just assemble it and go for finishing and packing. So it also incurs an additional of its own cost of 45 before selling it to the external market at an external selling price of 100. Okay, so what should be the transfer price set? Okay, how is going to affect the individual profits for this division A and B, where division A is a selling division, okay, who sells to B, and division B is going to be a buying division. So transfer price A will charge to B. Okay, what should be the transfer price? Okay, so he's going to charge B for this transfer price, and then he's going to incur his own cost of 20. Okay, here you will get the profit of A. And what would happen here? Here he would charge, he would sell externally at 100, and then there'll be some transfer in cost. Definitely, he's buying from A. There'll be this transfer price, and then there is some own cost as well of 45. So this will be the profit for division B. So what if a transfer price of 20 is set? What would happen in that case? Okay, now A is going to charge 20. Okay, A has got his own cost of 20. What would happen with A in this case? Would he be happy? What is the profit out of this transaction? There's none profit. What about B? Would B be happy to get the goods at a transfer price of 20? Yeah, definitely, because here it's selling outside at 100, and then there's this transfer price of 20, okay? And then there is an own cost of 45. So what is his profit? It's getting 35. Yes, he's more than happy. What would happen at the group level in case the goods and services are being exchanged within the group companies, okay, within subsidiary companies? So this transaction is, so all these intra-company transactions, they are just vanished at the time of consolidation. So the transfer price is not going to affect the group profit. So here, what would be the group profit? So what is a group profit? How is it calculated? So group profit would only be the external selling price minus the cost incurred by the buying division, selling division, minus the cost incurred by the buying division. So the group profit is going to be external selling price minus cost incurred by a selling division and minus cost incurred by a buying division. So whatever is going to be the transfer price rate, 20, 30, 40, it's going to impact the individual divisional profits, but not to the group profit. This group profit is ultimately going to be 100 minus 20 minus 45, so it's going to be 35. So whether it was 40 or whatever, this transfer price just get canceled and it doesn't show in the group profit. Group profit are not affected as well as companies are trading internally. So it gets canceled. So ultimately group profit is 35. That is basically coming from B. So here when we set a transfer price of 20, B would be happy, but A won't be happy. So what if we set a transfer price of if a transfer price of 55 is set? Okay, here what would happen to A and B as well as to the group profit? So what would happen here? Now the transfer price is 55. What is the own cost for A? It's 20. Now it's 55, let's 20. Okay, now what is the profit that A is getting? It's 35. Then what would happen to B? Here, he's selling externally at 100, bearing the transfer price of 55 this time around. and also has its own cost for finishing packing, that of 45. So now what is he getting? Now he's getting nothing. So when we set a transfer price of 20, okay, A is not happy, but B is happy. What if we set a transfer price of 55? Okay, in this case, B is happy, but A is not happy, but none is affecting the group profit. Here, the group profit is the same, 100 minus cost incurred by the selling division minus cost incurred by the buying division. So it's going to be 20 minus 45. Anyways, it's going to be 35. So transfer price doesn't affect the group profit, but it is affecting the individual profit. Here, A is not happy, and here, B is not happy. So what would be an ideal price in this scenario? Okay, the ideal price in this scenario, so as to motivate manager A to sell to B, it has to cover its minimum transfer price that A would be willing to pay, would be greater than its own marginal cost of 20. And the maximum, what would B be ready to pay? Okay, so here I'm making 2 points here. So the minimum price, the minimum transfer price is set by the selling division, and the maximum is what is set, the upper limit is set by the buying division, because this is what the maximum he is willing to pay. Currently, the maximum he's willing to pay is 55, because in that the loss is 0. Over that, he'll be bearing the profit is 0, and over that he'll be bearing a loss. And he would be more than happy if the price would be somewhere less than 55. So in this case, the minimum transfer price would be greater than 20, so as to motivate the selling division to sell to B, okay, and it should at least cover its own marginal cost of 20, and the maximum transfer price would be sold by the buying division, because here at 55 he's at 0. If it's going to be more than 55, he'll be at a loss. So what maximum price he would be willing to pay would be less than 55. So what the maximum would be less than 55, okay, not more than 55, and the minimum would be greater than 20, because at 20 he's not at any profit. If it would be greater than 20, then for example, if it's 30, then the profit of 10 is here. Okay, so the minimum set by the selling division would be greater than 20, and the maximum would be the buying division would restrict the maximum price and would be not more than 55, because that will be at a disadvantage. So what would be the ideal price would be somewhere in between 20 to 55, because when it was set at 20, B takes the maximum benefit. When it was set at 55, then A takes the maximum benefit, that is the group profit of 35. So in order to share the benefit, the price would be somewhere between 20 to 55. Okay, greater than 20, but less than 55. Both would be happy, because then they will be having some sort of profits, because they're profit accountable. Yeah, the bonuses are connected to it. Okay, so the transfer price should be kind of a negotiated style pricing, so that both are motivated to do the trading together. The group would be happy at the same time. Okay, so its transfer price should be such so that there's a goal congruence. Okay, at 20 there wasn't goal congruence. Okay, group was getting the benefit from, entire benefit was coming from B, and A wasn't happy. So A won't be motivated to sell to B. If it was at 55, there was no goal congruence here, because B objective wasn't being met. Only the group objective were being met. So in order to have the goal congruence, the transfer price should ensure the goal congruence. And it should be such so that the division makes the profit as well as the group makes, they take decision that is best for the group on the whole. Okay, So this is the situation when I didn't say that A could sell externally and B could buy from external supplier. Okay, it was an ideal situation when A couldn't, the only option A had, the only production A was doing for B, but maybe A could have an external market as well. And the only option B had was to buy from A. This scenario is that the only option B could have was to buy from May, and he couldn't buy the batteries, the batteries from the external supplier. And there may be a possibility of an intermediate market in that case. What would be the ideal price? So in this scenario, when no intermediate market available, what are the rules for transfer pricing? I told you A sell to B, okay, its own cost is 20 and the B cost is 45 and it's selling externally the car is at 100, okay, and there's no intermediate market available, means neither A can sell externally nor B could buy from external supplier. Then in that case, what should be the ideal transfer price sensible transfer price so as to optimize group profit? That would ensure goal congruence and also would make each individual managers happy. So now talking about the rules. In that case, you need to think about the minimum transfer price set by the selling division and then maximum transfer price set by the buying division. That would be the upper limit. Over the top of that, you would just start making a loss. Though he cannot buy from external supplier at that moment, but he'll start making loss. Else there was an external supplier, he would have bought externally. But currently there's no intermediate market. Neither he could sell outside nor B could buy from external supplier. So talking about the rules now, in case A where there's no intermediate market, what are the transfer pricing rules for that? So the minimum transfer price would be the marginal cost, okay? And the maximum transfer price would be, so the minimum transfer price would be greater than 20, okay? And the maximum transfer price would be less than 55, okay? Here's a concept of net marginal revenue. What is net marginal revenue in the scenario? What is net marginal revenue for B? Okay, the revenue coming from one unit, okay. The sale is 100 and his own cost is 45. What is, in that case, the net marginal revenue? That is 55. So the minimum would be the marginal cost, greater than the marginal cost, but the maximum limit imposed by the buying department would be less than the net marginal revenue. So the transfer price, that's the minimum set by the selling division, and that's the maximum. So the ideal transfer price would be somewhere between 20 to 55, because that in this way they're sharing the benefit. If it's 20, okay, A is at disadvantage, B takes the whole benefit. If it's at 55, then in that case B gets nothing and A takes the whole benefit. So group profit is going to be the same. It's going to be 100 minus 45 minus 20. It will always be 35. It's not going to impact the group profit. But then in this way, if it is negotiated within this range, this would be the ideal transfer price. So these are the transfer price rules for case 1 when no intermediate market available. Now moving on to the case 2 where intermediate market is available for the seller. Moving on to case 2, when external market exists for a seller, but buyer cannot buy from outside supplier. So now seller can sell the batteries, can provide to B at the same time, can sell externally to the external market at 30. Okay, 20 is its marginal cost, and here can sell to the external market at 30. Okay. So there'll be two scenarios in case 2. One is where seller has a spare capacity. So keep this thing in mind. A is a seller. Okay, A is providing the items to B. So A will be producing and providing to B. Okay, so the production capacity, it would depend upon whatever he's going to charge, would depend upon the production capacity. Whether he has a spare capacity. At times, there may be a case where he has no spare capacity. So what would be the transfer price when he has a spare capacity and when he has no spare capacity? In that case, for example, here the production capacity is 10,000, and here demand for B is 6,000, and here the external demand is 5,000. Okay, now talking about here, what would be the ideal price when external market exists for a seller? He could sell the same thing that is providing to B to the external market at 30, but we cannot buy the components that you want from A, okay, in order to sell his own product after incurring this cost to the outside market, but the outside supplier is not available. He would either buy the components from A only, and A is producing components and the production capacity is 10,000 units. So currently demand for B is given in the question, okay. B wants, how many units B wants from A? It's 5,000. And what is the external demand for A? Okay, here the external demand is 5,000. So that means here he has spare capacity. There's no capacity restrictions here. He could provide 5,000 to B and as well as can provide 5,000 to the external demand because that's what he's producing and there's no capacity limitations. But at times there are capacity limitations. For example, the production capacity is still the same, 10,000, but here the demand for B has increased from 5,000 to 6,000. And the external demand is the same as 5,000. So now that makes 11,000 in total. However, the production capacity is only 10,000, this 1,000 shortfall. So what would happen now? If A has to serve the demand for B, which is 6,000, then in that case, he only has spare capacity for 5,000. And the next 5,000, he has to deliver to the external market, okay? So, but his demand is 1,000 more. What about this 1,000? This will be shifted from the external market in order to serve the demand for B. And here, there will be a concept of contribution foregone as a result of our decision, because now we have to serve the demand for B, and B was 6,000. Now there would be a concept of contribution where A could sell externally at 30. If he had served the demand of this 1,000 externally, he would have obtained 30, and after incurring a variable cost of 30, by selling externally, he's currently earning a contribution of 10. And that will be lost. So that will be lost. So in that case, so as to make B happy, so as to make A happy about not losing this contribution, B should be charged this lost contribution as well. Then only both would be happy. And there wouldn't be any lost contribution due to trading inside, and A would be happy as well. So in both cases, what would be the transfer price? That we're going to discuss now. But first, we're going to do this where seller has spare capacity, and buyer buyer doesn't have any option to buy it from outside supplier. So what's going to be the transfer price in this scenario? Okay. So here he can continue to sell at 30. He has the production capacity of 10,000. He could sell 5,000 to external market, and then he can meet the demand of 5,000. There's no lost contribution here. When he has spare capacity, there is no lost contribution because the external demand is being met. Okay, the lost contribution is when the we have to shift. We have to instead of selling externally, we have to shift the demand from external market to that of B in order to satisfy its complete demand. So here the demand is 6,000. Now 1,000 shortfall here. Here then now 1,000 units would 10 per unit. There will be some lost contribution, and every unit for every 1,000 unit there will be lost contribution for 10 now. Now there will be a lost contribution in that case. But when it has a spare capacity, there's no lost contribution. So the rules are the same as before. Then what would be the minimum transfer price in this scenario? So you would be happy if the transfer price, minimum transfer price would be more than 20 because he has spare capacity. So anywhere, but not less than 20 because in that case, he's just getting nothing. So it would be greater than 20. And the maximum would be set definitely by the B, okay, and that would be equal to the net marginal revenue. But after that, it was 55, which is 100 minus 45. So net marginal revenue in that case would be 55. So that's the maximum he's willing to pay in this scenario. So it would be less than 55. So ideal price would be somewhere between 20 to 55. So this minimum, this is minimum, and this is the maximum set by B. Because above that, he is just getting nothing. So it should be between this so as to motivate both of them and to ensure both congruence and so as to motivate both of the managers. Okay, and he can continue to sell externally at 100, sorry, at 30, and there's no problem with that. Okay, so that's the transfer price. Now, when he have no spare capacity. Okay, what would be the transfer price? Now the demand. So now the demand for B is 6,000. So what would be the transfer price for 5,000? 5,000 we have a spare capacity. At that case, we don't have any the lost contribution. So in that case, the minimum is marginal cost plus lost contribution. So here, when we have had spare capacity, the minimum, there was no lost contribution. The minimum was just equal to the marginal cost. So here again, the rules would be the same, and also buyer cannot buy externally. So the maximum would be, minimum would be this marginal cost, and the maximum would be equal to the net marginal revenue that one unit should earn. It should be equal to that. Otherwise, he'll start incurring loss. So the minimum transfer price in this scenario would be, okay, minimum transfer price would be greater than 20, and maximum transfer price would be less than 55 again, and it would be for this 5,000, the transfer price would be in this range of 20 to 55, so as to share the benefit between the both, and in order to ensure the divisional autonomy and managers' motivation, so also to ensure goal congruence. That would be the best transfer price for this 5,000 where there's the spare capacity. But now the demand was for B was 6,000. What about this 1,000? Here, in order to meet this demand, now there will be a shift from external to B. So in external, I would only be able to provide 4,000 units, and now that has been shifted to B. So here, there will be a lost contribution of 10. Now there will be a lost contribution as a result of not being able to sell externally at 30 and getting a contribution of 10. Now, what would be the minimum transfer price? Here is the lost contribution as well. So what would be the minimum transfer price in this case? Would be, okay, so the minimum is going to be set by the seller, okay, and it would be here, it would be minimum transfer price would be equal to marginal cost plus contribution foregone. So marginal cost is 20, contribution foregone per unit is 10. So the minimum transfer price would be greater than 30. Yeah, and the maximum, again, the same rules for the maximum. Maximum would be set by the buyer again, and he won't be ready to pay more than 55, because that in that case he'll be at a disadvantage. So you shouldn't pay more than the net marginal revenue that is earning 100 minus 45, that is earning from 1 unit, which is 55. So you see the rules has changed. When there was a spare capacity, it was like this, 20. It was ready to pay anything above that would cover the marginal cost, but less than the maximum would be what he is getting, less than the net marginal revenue. But here, when there was the capacity limitations, okay, this where there was no capacity limitations, but this scenario too, where there were capacity limitations, then in that case, there'll be a lost contribution. The minimum would cover the marginal cost as well as the contribution foregone. So here, the minimum would be 30 and the maximum would be 55. So the ideal transfer price in this scenario where they have no spare capacity for these 1,000 units. So this 5,000 would be 20 to 55. For this at least 1,000 units, it would be between 30 to 55. Okay, this was when external market for a seller exists. Now, case 3, when external market exists for both the seller and the buyer, when there's intermediate market available. So imagine now, the maximum he was ready to pay, the B was ready to pay for A was 55. What if the same component was available in the market at 50? What do you think? Are the rules going to change now? The maximum rule would change. Yes. Now the buyer could go outside. Why paying extra 5 per unit when he could get the same from the outside supplier? So now, in order to ensure that the trading takes place within the company and B doesn't go to the outside supplier, what B tells you, what maximum B is available, what maximum price B is now ready to pay would be 50, would be 50 now. So here the rules would be the maximum, for maximum it would be lower of external buying price and net marginal revenue. So the maximum price that a buyer would be ready to pay would be 55 now. So the rules for the maximum price would change. It would now be 50 here, 50 here. Okay. What is lower of net marginal revenue and external selling price? It is 50. Yeah. Now we're going to do that separate. Now, when external market exists for both, case number 3, for both the buyers as well as sellers, what would happen now? When both buyer and seller have intermediate market, both buyer can buy. So here, buyer can buy at 50 from an outside supplier. Okay. So buyer has an option to buy externally. Instead of buying from A, he could buy externally at a price of 50. Okay, good enough. And A can also sell externally, the same case as before. A can also sell externally at 30. So what would be the transfer price in this scenario where there's no capacity limitations, or when there are capacity limitations. Okay, when now production capacity is 10,000, demand for B, external demand can be met as well as demand for the B. So here, the minimum transfer price set by the seller, minimum what seller would be ready to sell the goods to B would be over the marginal cost, would be more than 20. So the minimum would be he that, because he if it would be less than 2, he'll be at a disadvantage. If it is equal to 20, he's still at a disadvantage. There's no profit. So if minimum transfer price set by the seller in this scenario would be greater than 20, but here the rule is less than net marginal revenue. But here I'm revising the rule. It's going to be lower of net marginal revenue and external buying price. And now the buyer could go to the external market and buy the same for 50. So now the lower of both, net marginal revenue is 100 minus 45. It's 55, like this. From 1 unit, what is the earning? Marginal revenue, 1 unit is 100. What is net marginal revenue, net of cost? That's going to be 50. So the net marginal revenue would be lower of both. So here it would be, the rules would change, and it would be from 50, it would be, for 55, it would be 50. Okay, so that's the change. So the ideal price would be somewhere between 20 to 50 in case there is intermediate market, and also the same material component is available in the external market and we could buy externally at 50. So earlier he was maximum he was able to pay when there was no external market was 55, but he has an option of 50. So lower of both is going to be the maximum set by the buyer. Maximum price is set by the buyer. So the minimum transfer price set by the seller, always the minimum is set by the seller and maximum is set by the buyer. Always remember these rules. And same 5,000 we can sell externally in 30, and there will be no lost contribution. That's why the minimum I quoted is 20, because here the demand doesn't need to be shifted from external in order to meet the demand for B, because there is spare capacity available. At times, let's see now, the demand is 6,000 and external demand is 5,000, but he's only producing 10,000. However, the total demand is 11,000, and which is more than the current demand of 10,000. Currently, there's a shortfall of 1,000. Now, what would happen in this scenario? So again, for 5,000 and 1,000, 5,000 still have a spare capacity, and for 5,000 again, the transfer price would be greater than 20 and less than, now again, the lower of both. Now, earlier it was 55, now it would be 50, and the ideal transfer price would be somewhere between 20 to 50 for these 5,000 units. And now for these additional 1,000 units, what would be the transfer price? Because now we have to shift the demand from here till here, and we would only be able to meet the external demand of 4,000, and 1,000 we have to ship from outside. Now there is a concept again, concept of lost contribution of 10 per unit. Okay, this 30 is selling outside, okay, and 20 is its cost. So by selling outside, currently he's earning contribution of 10 that we won't be able to charge. So the minimum here would be revised. So here the minimum for these additional 1,000 units would be revised. So here the minimum is going to be marginal cost plus lost contribution. So marginal cost is 20 and lost contribution is 10. So the minimum transfer price would be over 30, and but less than lower of, yeah, same rules, lower of net marginal revenue or external bank price. Now it's going to be lower than 50. So the ideal transfer price for these, where there's capacity limitation, no spare capacity, Ideal price would be 30 to, in the range of 30 to 50. So what is the purpose of transfer price and the transfer price rules? Okay. So transfer price, as we're talking uh, uh, about the division. Division have got the autonomy to take their own decisions. So where at times when we're head office, where buyer could buy from external market and it's cheap over there, but the head office is just forcing forcing that department to buy internally, then in that case his own divisional autonomy would be compromised. So in that case we would just in order to uh, uh, in order to encourage the buyer to buy from internal, we can just optimize a rule. We can just set a sensible price that would just ensure the divisional autonomy. Then in that case we just maximum we set it as per whatever is available to the external market. So that's what the maximum that he would be able to pay. So if you would get the same at the same price, you would get it internally at 50, the maximum at 50, the maximum, then you would be just happy to buy from internal. You won't go for external markets. So in that case, transfer price should be such so as to ensure divisional autonomy. Okay, power to make decisions which are in their best interest. Okay, they should always have. For example, if a head office set policy to buy from inside when it's cheaper to buy from outside, the divisional autonomy in that case would be compromised. Okay, so if you set the transfer price at 50 maximum, then you would just buy from internal. You won't go to the external supplier in that case. And the transfer price should be that it ensures the fair performance measurement on the basis of profit. As I told you, the centers are profit accountable. So if one charges a high price, then the other department, then he would be happy. Then he has the seller has a high profit, but the other department would be affected from the high transfer price. But that's the cost to the other, and his profit would be less. So a transfer price should be such that none of the division is affected. None of the division is at a disadvantage, because in that case managers would be motivated to sell internally. Otherwise they would just go to the external department. They would just go to the external market when their intermediaries market available. But that there they would be happy, but then the goal congruence would be affected, and good would be then the group would be suffering. In that case group would be suffering. So imagine if the maximum he was ready to pay was 55, but then there was an option by the external supplier that he could obtain from 50, but then the transfer price A was ready to charge for B was still 55. So what would B do? B would just go and buy from external supplier. What would happen to the group profit? In case B takes it from A, then in that case, the group profits are 100 minus 45 minus 20. Here the group profits are 35. But imagine when they go externally, okay? Then in that case, what would happen? Maybe the same unit A would sell, okay? A would sell externally. For example, the same unit he would sell externally at 30, okay. 30, that's the revenue coming from A, and then the revenue coming from B was 100. So the total revenue, group revenue is 130. But now the group cost is 20 from A and 45 from B. It's as is, but now there's another cost of this 50. So what's going to happen to the group profit? Imagine here. So 20 plus 45 plus 50. Now the group cost is 115 and the group revenue is 130. So that means Now the group profit is only 15. So there, from earlier, group was getting 35. Now there is, as a result of the decision, there is a loss in the group profit. They're not suffering, but the group is suffering now. So the group has to give autonomy to the divisional managers to take their own decision to set somewhere a price where they share the benefit so that both are happy and the group is happy and group is not affecting and there is a goal congruence. So this is the rationale. The individual managers are motivated, their profit, if their profit accountable, transfer price is not distorting their performance profit figures, then they'll be motivated. And then at the same time, they take a decision which is in the best interest of the company. Here, B took a decision in the best interest that he is just going to reduce his cost. He is getting for 50. He's just now here B took a decision in his best interest. But however, when we calculated the group profit, here the group was at a loss because earlier the profit was 35, but here the group is at a disadvantage. He saved his cost of 5, okay, but the group is losing revenue, losing profit as a result of this. So we need to ensure that we set an ideal price, that the managers are motivated to trade internally and the group is not getting affected. And also the individual profits are not getting affected since their profit centers, their bonuses are linked to their profits, so they don't want to be at any disadvantage. Hence, that would be motivation. That's the rationale of an ideal transfer price. So now I am moving on to the general rule. What is the general rule tells you? So here, the important things to consider before setting transfer price or doing a transfer pricing question in the exam, you need to know who is a buyer and who is the seller. And also the data, what is their own cost, what is the selling price, what is the external. And also you need to think about whether the supplier has an intermediate market and buyer has an intermediate market. Then the rules would be different. Then you have to see whether there are any capacity limitations as well, whether there's any contribution foregone, then in that case the minimum should cover the contribution foregone at the same time. Then there are two important things that you need to consider. Maybe what is the current policy of the transfer price for the company? Maybe currently the company is imposing that they must buy internal. Then they could ask question, examiner could ask you what would be the individual division profit as well as the group profit as in the current policy. Then also you could be asked what is the group you should know what is the group proposed policy or the future policy. Maybe now they would just go for an optimum transfer price. That is, I am just going to make what is the optimum transfer price where the transaction would be just like an arm length transaction, that as if it was occurring at an open market, okay, that would fall there. That is where the group profits would be optimized, okay. And for example, if question is there where they tell you that calculate the group profit or individual profit where the transfer price is optimized, then remember, now here it's talking about there's a theoretical general rule applied where the group profits are optimized. Then here you have to follow the general rule. So here, what is the general rule? I have already made it, but now I just want to state it right in front of you. If spare capacity exists, the minimum price set from the seller perspective would be over that covering its marginal cost. And the maximum in that case would be lower of net marginal revenue and external buying price. But when spare capacity, but when there's no spare capacity and company is already working at full capacity, then in that case, minimum the seller would be ready to accept would be what would be covering its marginal cost as well as the lost contribution. And you can minus any of the cost saving by selling internally. It could be that you could save some of your transportation cost by selling internally because the divisions are closer by, or maybe at times You're not required to do that, incur packing cost. You could save some on the packing cost, okay? Because you make a luxury packing, you make a suitable packing when you're buying. You're more conscious about the packing when you're buying. You're selling externally, but here you're just buying internally. You could save some of your cost. Yeah, here in my scenario, the marginal cost was 20 and the loss contribution was 30. So minimum I set at 30. Maybe 5 was the internal cost saving. So maybe the minimum I would set as now as 25 in case where there is no spare capacity. So in that case, minimum would be marginal cost plus loss contribution less any of the internal cost saving, and the higher would be the same maximum, and the maximum price would be the same. Maximum rules would be lower of net marginal revenue. That would maximum is set by the buyer, and it would be lower of net marginal revenue and external buying price. So at times you are required to calculate the group profit and individual profit. On the current policy, it may be that you are supposed to buy internally. Because in that case, when you force somebody to buy internally, okay, then there'll be some division whose divisional autonomy will be compromised and the manager won't motivate it. So that's not an ideal transfer price. There won't be any goal congruence in that case. So now question propose you that there's some proposed policy, which is where you have to tell the select a transfer price where group profits are optimized, then follow this general rule. This is a rule where none of the division would be at a disadvantage. I told you about this transfer price referred to establishing an arm length price. That is a price charged in the open market. It would be that buyer would just get it what is available in the external market from the seller, and the seller should charge the buyer, or buyer should be able to pay the seller. That the seller is at no disadvantage. That is going to be the same price, the same market price, less any internal cost saving that he's getting from by selling externally. So that's going to be on both sides. That's going to be that's going to be a win-win situation. That's going to be an ideal price at an arm length transaction. So transfer price doesn't affect the group profits because the transfer price can cancel at the consolidation stage, and the group profit is this. So there are different types of transfer pricing. Transfer pricing could be on the minimum marginal cost. It could be the cost-based, and cost-based pricing could be market-based pricing, could be negotiated transfer pricing, and at times it may be a dual transfer pricing. So cost-based transfer pricing, apart from the general rule, okay? If a question asks you that calculate a transfer price where the group profit is optimized, take none of these and just go for the general rule and see whether the external market exists both for buyer and the seller, and whether there are any capacity limitations with spare capacity or no spare capacity, and just apply the general rule as is. Other than that, what are other transfer prices, types of transfer prices? It would be somewhere in between lies the cost-based transfer prices that we mostly opt when the external market doesn't exist. Okay. So we could charge at the minimum at marginal cost, we could charge at full absorption cost, we could charge at full cost plus, okay, unless it is less than the net marginal revenue and it is over than the marginal cost. So isn't it the same as when there was no intermediate market and the ideal price was between 20 to 55 over marginal cost less than net marginal revenue for the buying division. And market-based approach is same what is available in the open market, same what I told you in the arm's length transaction, that would ensure the goal congruence. And at times, the general rule is more closer to this market-based approach, okay? Because in that case, none of the division is at a disadvantage. None of the division is affected, and they both are motivated to do internal trading. Because if they're going to start do external trading, the group is going to be affected. Then they'll be self-interested segments where they're working for their personal objectives and group objective are not being achieved. So there won't be any goal, it won't be a goal congruent decision. So transfer price should ensure goal congruence, motivation. It should provide fair performance measurement so as to motivate the managers. And then there is something known as negotiated transfer price. Negotiated transfer price that is agreed between the selling and the purchasing division. And it preserves the autonomy, okay? It is inconsistent with the spirit of decentralization, that they have autonomy to take their own decisions. Secondly, they can have better information about cost and benefit of internal trading. That I just told you, if they start trading externally, the group is going to be affected. So they come to somewhere in between what I told you, 20 to 55. They could end up negotiating in those, in that given range, where none of the benefit is being shared and none of the division is at a disadvantage. At times, there is a concept of dual transfer price. With the dual transfer pricing system, the selling division receives one price where the buying division is charged a different price. Just for the artificial kind of thing, just for that reporting purposes, it may be the selling division charged at a market price. Yeah, let's suppose it was 30. And the buying division just charged at a marginal cost, minimum 20. Okay, so maybe then in that case, both would be happy, and the group would be at the same time. Group would be happy at the same time because the transfer price doesn't. And now the trading is going internally; so they're not going to the intermediate market. Okay, now group is happy, and the transfer price doesn't affect the groups at all. Now a financial person can tell you how they're going to do the cancellation now if the prices are different. You can ask your financial teacher. But I am just telling you there is an option of dual transfer pricing at the same time, where one charge a price maybe, let me take it again, this, it would be like this, that maybe for A and B, A transfer price of 30, he would be happy because that's what he's getting. That's basically the market price. He's selling externally at 30, but trading is going internally. A sells to B now at 30, transferring at 30. Okay, then the marginal cost is 20. Here the profit is 10, and here he is just showing it like this. Externally, he is selling at 100. His own cost is 45, and A's cost was 20. That's the marginal cost for both. So his own cost, his transfer price here, we can show it as 20. Yeah, that's the minimum. It would increase its profit, and this transfer price would increase this profit. And both, it is a dual, a different price is being charged. And both would be happy, would be both be making some profit. And its own cost was 45. So here, what is the profit? It is he's getting 35, and he's also just as if the transactions are taking place. But here it's not, it doesn't seem to be at an arm length transaction, because here he won't be more happy, but that's an option of dual pricing, with price charging separate price. But here he is not happy because he could get in the external market, he could get it for 50, and now he's getting for 20. So he would get it to increase somewhere, okay? Because the ideal would be more than 20 and less than 50 in that case, would be somewhere between 20 to 50. Maybe they negotiate so that he gets to improve his profit as well. Then it would be somewhere a negotiated transfer price so as to maximize the benefit. So that's it from today's session. I hope you understood each and everything. That's it from today. Thank you.